3 months into my pregnancy, my younger brother called to say his wife was also expecting. I went home to congratulate them, only to overhear a conversation between my parents and my brother. "Are you sure my sister will really give me the baby? You have low sperm count and can't have kids. The Nina family can't end with you. Just let your sister and her husband have another one afterward," my father said matter-of-factly. I didn't cause a scene. I simply turned around and sent my dad and brother each a vasectomy kit. When I first heard that my sister-in-law Anna was pregnant, I thought I must have misread the message. Anna had always been pampered, unable to bear the slightest discomfort. One of her conditions for marrying my brother was that she would decide when to have children. Just a few days ago, she visited me while I was dealing with terrible morning sickness. Pouting, she had clung to me and said, "Sis, being pregnant sounds terrifying." And now, suddenly she's pregnant? I didn't think much of it. I picked up some of Anna's favorite snacks and went back to my parents' place. The old apartment had thin walls. Just as I was about to knock, I heard my brother's voice inside, "Mom, Dad, are you really sure my sister will give us the baby she's carrying?" I froze. My hand hovered in front of the door. What did he just say? Then I heard my father speak confidently, "What's hers or yours? It's all part of the Nina family." And my mother chimed in with a frustrated tone, "Exactly. And if it weren't for your sperm issues, would we even need your sister's baby?" She sighed. "Still, it's just not the same." I stood there, furious. Just as I was about to storm in, Anna's voice came from behind me. "Sis, why are you standing at the door?" The three people inside must have heard her too, because the room immediately went quiet. I turned to look. Anna was in a tracksuit, slightly out of breath, sweat still on her forehead. Clearly, she had just finished her morning run. I scoffed. "What kind of miracle pregnancy lets you work out before your first trimester is even stable?" Anna opened the door and ushered me in cheerfully. "Sis, it's windy outside. You're pregnant, you shouldn't be standing out there long." I swallowed the fire burning in my chest and stepped inside. My parents and Hugo were sitting at the dining table, eating soy milk and fried dough sticks. Anna quickly rushed to open the windows. "Hugo, what are you doing just standing there? Don't you know your sister gets nauseous from the smell of soy?" I cut in coldly, "Anna, don't bother. You're pregnant too, just sit down and rest." Anna blinked in surprise and looked up. "Pregnant? Me?" The other three froze. My heart sank. I knew something was off. My mom was the first to recover. She half dragged me into the back room. "Nina, I won't hide it anymore. Your brother was just diagnosed with low sperm count, and Anna isn't exactly the maternal type. So when you give birth, just hand the baby over to them. We've planned it all. To protect your brother's reputation, we'll tell everyone that Anna was the one pregnant. When the baby is born, we'll just say you had a miscarriage." I stared at my mother's moving mouth, feeling like I was listening to something out of a twisted novel. Finally, I heard my own trembling voice, "Mom, you know I have fertility issues. Evan and I have waited and struggled so long for this baby. How am I supposed to explain this to him?" My mom simply gave me a cold look. "Nina, don't forget who your real family is. Blood comes first. Besides, could you really stand to see the Nina family line die out?" I tried to remain calm, to reason with her. "Mom, medicine has come a long way. Hugo's condition can be treated. And if having biological kids isn't an option, they can always adopt. There are so many orphans who need families. Why must it be my baby?" That made her snap. "This can't go to the hospital. If word gets out about your brother's condition, he'll be socially ruined." She started to cry and even dropped to her knees. "Nina, please, I'm begging you. Just help your brother this once. His job is already terrible, and Anna's family already looks down on him. If they find out he's infertile, they'll definitely push for a divorce. My anger boiled over. So you know your son's job is a mess, but have you even thought this through? Even if they do get a child, can they afford to raise one? Hugo graduated from a second-tier college and had always been picky about jobs. He still hadn't found anything stable. Evan had pulled strings to get Hugo his current job, and even so, with his lazy attitude, working a few days, slacking off the rest, he barely made enough to support himself, let alone raise a child. Now, he and Anna constantly reached out to our parents for money. My mother mumbled with her head lowered, "Isn't that what you're for? Your husband earns so much. Helping your brother out should be your responsibility too." Hearing that, rage surged through me. So that's what this was really about. Not only was I supposed to hand over the child I had carried for 10 months, but I was also expected to financially support Hugo and his whole family? What did they think Evan and I were? Suckers? I stood up and said coldly, "Money doesn't fall from the sky. As for the baby, forget it. And I won't give Hugo a single cent from now on." I looked my mother in the eye and added, "With genes like his, it'd be better not to pass them on." Before I could finish, the door was slammed open. "You ungrateful wretch. How dare you curse the Nina family to die out," my father bellowed as he raised his hand and slapped me hard across the face. His face was red with fury, and he started rolling up his sleeves, cursing while looking for something to strike me with. My mom quickly scrambled to her feet to stop him. "Calm down. She's still carrying our family's blood," she cried as she tugged at my sleeve, clearly trying to get me to back down. For a moment, I felt like I was a child again. Back then, whenever my father came home drunk, he'd lash out without reason, first at me, then at my mom. He'd scream about how I should have been born a boy and how my mother was a hen who couldn't lay golden eggs. Then Hugo was born. From that point on, I was the only one he beat. During those nights, my mother would cradle Hugo and hide in another room, pretending not to hear my screams or pleas. When I finally got into university, I fled that city as quickly as I could. The next time I saw them, my dad had quit drinking and my mom had picked up part-time work. I thought they had changed. But now I knew, no matter how much a monster tries to wear a mask, they can never truly be good. I closed my eyes, trying to muffle the ringing in my ears. I raised my phone and warned, "Try laying another finger on me, and I swear you'll rot in jail for the rest of your life." My father, who'd once spent time at the police station in his younger years for being righteous, actually hesitated at that. My mom quickly tried to mediate. "Nina, give me the phone. We're family. There's no need for this." I pressed my thumb firmly on the last digit and said icily, "Family? Let me make this clear, don't take one more step. I'm not a child anymore. I mean what I say." With that, I turned and stormed out the door. Behind me, I could hear my father's impotent fury and my mother's quiet sobbing. In the living room, Anna had clearly been sent away beforehand. Hugo was lounging on the couch playing video games. He glanced at the bright red handprint on my cheek and smirked, just like when we were kids and he'd get me in trouble. "You should have listened to Mom and Dad from the start. Oh, and transfer me some money. I want to buy a new skin." I hadn't planned to speak to him, but when I heard that, I couldn't help turning back. "You seriously think it's okay to ask me for money right now?" Hugo nodded smugly. "Of course. You're my sister. Mom and Dad said what's yours is mine anyway." I clenched my fists. Every inch of me wanted to punch that smug face. But I didn't. He's a man and I'm pregnant. I couldn't risk anything. Hugo grew impatient. "Hurry up." I pulled out my phone. "Wait." Seeing me comply, he grinned with satisfaction. But that smile didn't last long. Anna's mother called just then. As soon as Hugo answered, I could hear her furious voice screaming through the speaker, "Hugo, is it true what your sister said that you're infertile? You bastard. You dare deceive our entire family?" You just wait, I'll make you pay for this. Hugo looked up slowly, finally realizing something was wrong. I stood by the door with an innocent smile and said, you guessed it, I'm the one who ratted you out. With that, I slammed the door behind me and drove off without hesitation. Anna's family had already been unimpressed with Hugo, especially her mother. She'd always thought Hugo was a flashy pillow with no substance, unworthy of her daughter. If she found out that not only did Hugo have a low sperm count, but he'd also been hiding it from them, she'd explode. I'd pretended to transfer money to Hugo, but in reality, I had secretly messaged Anna's mother. Sure enough, she blew up instantly. As my phone buzzed continuously with calls from Hugo, I calmly blocked his number in disgust. Very soon, a WeChat message popped up, Nina, I won't let you get away with this. Attached was a disturbingly gory meme. Without hesitation, I blocked and deleted every family member's contact. But a dark glint flickered in my eyes. If they chose to be heartless, they couldn't blame me for being ruthless. After getting out of the car, I called Evan. His company was rushing to finish a big project, and he'd been sleeping there for several days. As soon as the call connected, I heard his tired yet gentle voice on the other end, Nina, what's wrong? I hadn't cried when my parents schemed against me. I hadn't cried when they hit me. But hearing just this one sentence from Evan made my nose sting with sudden emotion. I wanted to tell him everything that had happened these past few days. I wanted to ask him to fire Hugo. But when the words reached my lips, I just couldn't say them. Evan came from an educated and upright family. His parents were both people of integrity. I doubted he had ever encountered anyone so shameless in his life. I suddenly regretted making this call. Evan must have sensed something was wrong, he started to sound worried. Clutching the phone tightly, I forced my emotions down and said lightly, it's nothing. I just miss you. Just then, an unfamiliar number popped up. I hastily ended the call with Evan and picked up. It was my mother, crying hysterically, Nina, come back quick. Your brother's going to be beaten to death. I pieced the story together from her disjointed sobs. After learning that Hugo had low sperm count, Anna's mother immediately called Anna back. After questioning her, she realized Anna had been completely in the dark. Feeling deceived, Anna's mother gathered a group of relatives and stormed our family home. Hugo, hot-headed as ever, lost his temper and a fight broke out. Outnumbered, Hugo got thoroughly beaten. Now, the group was still blocking the doorway, demanding an explanation. I quickly opened my phone's connected camera feed. Hugo and my father were crouched on the ground holding their heads, both clearly bruised. Several burly men stood around them with arms crossed. Anna's mother sat arrogantly on the couch like she owned the place. Your son's a damn rooster that can't lay eggs and he's been lying to my daughter all this time. My girl can't suffer this injustice for nothing. I've thought it through, 600,000 yuan. Flat price. Either pay, or my brother breaks one of your son's arms. That last sentence was practically hissed from between her clenched teeth. My mother flinched in terror. Hugo was her lifeline. If he became disabled, she'd feel like her own life was over too. Then came my mother's piercing scream through the phone, Nina, please. Save your brother. I told her to hand the phone to Anna's mother. Auntie, I began calmly, you know I'm pregnant now. There's a lot of expenses coming up. I really can't pay this money. Anna's mother spat through gritted teeth, so your family's refusing to pay up? I chuckled lightly, of course not. Auntie, it's clearly our family's fault. And even if I can't pay, what about my parents? Sure, they might not have money, but they do have that old house. It's worth quite a bit now. You know how much they love Hugo. Just apply a little pressure, they'll cave soon enough. I ended the call. From the camera, I could hear Hugo's pig-like screams as he got beat again. I gently touched my belly and smiled with satisfaction. I went home, took a nice shower, and had a restful sleep. I knew that, given my parents' and Hugo's personalities, this mess wasn't over. I needed to conserve my energy for the battles ahead. When I next opened my eyes, I saw Evan. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his chin was rough with stubble. When he saw me awake, he set down his work and walked over. "You're up. Hungry? There's porridge on the stove, want some?" I instinctively nodded. At the dining table, sipping the warm porridge, tears silently streamed down my face. Evan, a little helpless, gently wiped them away. "Nina, if something's bothering you, talk to me. You know I've always been on your side. We met back in high school. He chased me for 7 full years, always like a little sun, lighting up my dark world. It was with his support that I finally pulled through the shame and pain of my childhood." I broke down crying, telling Evan everything that had happened over the past few days. He listened quietly and then said calmly, "I'll take care of it." But I shook my head. This was something I had to handle. Only by crushing them myself could I truly overcome the wounds of my past. Evan had to rush back to work due to urgent deadlines. After a few gentle reminders, he left. Just as I was about to nap again, my parents showed up at the door, with Hugo in tow. I sat upright in the living room, watching the messy trio on the video doorbell screen, feeling irritated. "Go ahead. What do you want?" I asked coldly. Before I could even finish speaking, my dad roared, "You little bitch. You've got the nerve to ask what's going on? You dared to sic outsiders on us to steal my house. I should never have let you be born." I replied coldly, "If you've got something to say, say it. But if you keep swearing, I'll have security throw you out immediately." At that, my dad fell silent, somewhat sheepishly. My mom quickly jumped in to take over. "Nina, your dad was wrong to hit you, but you can't just stand by and watch us end up homeless." As she spoke, she suddenly threw herself to the floor, wailing and rolling around without the slightest shame. I sneered, "That's not my problem. If you want someone to blame, blame your precious son." Hugo, who had been silent until now, finally opened his mouth. "So what you're saying, Nina, is that you're not going to help us?" I gave a cold snort, which counted as a yes. Hugo looked up, a viciousness in his face I'd never seen before. "Let me warn you, Nina, you're pregnant right now. If something were to accidentally happen, it could cost 2 lives." He lazily blew on his fingernails. "Also, I heard your husband's business is doing pretty well. What do you think would happen if I spent a bit of money to spread some nasty rumors about him?" My breath caught. Hugo had always been the type to run with scum. Any dirty trick you could think of, he was capable of it. Rage surged through me. I wanted nothing more than to grab a kitchen knife and hack that vile face of his to pieces. But just then, I felt a tiny movement in my belly. I took a deep breath, my nails digging into my palms, forcing myself to calm down. My mind raced. I looked up again at the 3 smug figures at my door, and the corners of my lips lifted in a cold smile. They didn't seem to realize that someone who grew up never tasting sweetness will fight like a lunatic to protect even a single grain of sugar once she finally gets some. I gave Hugo an address. It was for a high-end apartment complex in the southern part of the city, a property I had bought years ago as an investment. It had been sitting empty because I'd never found a good buyer. I had never truly let down my guard around my parents. Despite giving them quite a bit over the years, they had no real idea of my current financial situation. Clearly, Hugo and the others hadn't expected me to be this wealthy. My dad immediately raised his voice, "Ungrateful wretch. If you'd given this apartment to your brother sooner, would he still be unable to marry Anna now?" Hugo and Anna had held a wedding ceremony, but never legally registered their marriage. Why? Because Hugo had no car, no house, no savings, and was still living cramped up with my parents in their old place. I sneered, "First of all, I have no obligation to give Hugo a house. Second, if you're going to keep lecturing me, then fine, either take it or get the hell out." My dad was so furious he started kicking the door. not caring in the slightest that I was pregnant. My mom reached out to pull at his sleeve, and only then did he stop. The three of them left, dragging bags behind them. Once I figured enough time had passed, I pulled up the surveillance footage from the southern apartment. Because no one lived there, I had always prioritized security. The place was covered in cameras. On screen, the three of them sat on the sofa, faces gloomy. My dad spoke first. "Why did you stop me?" "I'm telling you, kids like her should have been beaten to death from the start." But my mom, who had gained some say in the household after I became successful, wasn't having it. "You don't know shit. If you'd beaten Nina to death, where would Howhow's child and this apartment be now? If I hadn't stopped you, would you be sitting in such a nice place right now?" After that, she ignored him and turned to gently touch Hugo's bruised face. "Oh, my poor baby's really suffered." Hugo snuggled into her arms like a child, whining, "Mom, after all this, do you think Nina will still give me the baby? Or the apartment?" His eyes scanned the room, glinting with naked greed. "If I had this place, Anna's family would finally stop looking down on me." My mom smiled and hugged him. "Don't worry, your sister came from my womb, I know her best. She's got a soft heart. Just give it a few days. I'll go beg and cry in front of her. Don't worry, I'll get you both the baby and the apartment." Watching them embrace on the screen, I felt nothing but bitter irony. The very people who gave birth to me didn't even understand the most basic part of me. Yes, I have a soft heart, but when it comes to important matters, I've never been someone who lets others walk all over me. A few days later, my mom stopped me while I was out on a walk. She dropped to her knees, crying uncontrollably, begging for my forgiveness. People nearby began to stop and stare. As the crowd grew, I had no choice but to reach out and pull her up. Clinging to me, she immediately latched onto the opportunity. "Nina, does this mean you're not mad at mommy anymore?" I kept a cold face and nodded. "You go home first. I'll come visit in a few days. Let me know if there's anything missing in the apartment, I'll bring it over." My mom walked away, looking back every few steps with joy written all over her face. Back home, I turned on the surveillance feed. On screen, she was beaming with pride, showing off to my dad and Hugo. "Told you, with Nina you have to go soft. When she comes over in a few days, behave yourselves. I figure if I beg a bit more, we can get both the apartment and the baby from her." I turned off the monitor and let out a long breath. The fish had taken the bait. The next day, I arrived at the apartment carrying several large bags. Hugo, surprisingly, wasn't playing video games for once, he was helping my mom in the kitchen. My dad was even more out of character. He peeled an apple and awkwardly handed it to me. The scene should have been heartwarming. But all I felt was bitter cold. If this were the past, I might have been happy. But after everything that happened recently, all I felt was disgust when I looked at these three people. At the dinner table, Hugo awkwardly apologized. "Sis, I was wrong to threaten you the other day." I cut him off coldly. "Forget it. We're family." At my words, my parents exchanged a glance, barely able to contain their delight. My mom chimed in quickly. "You're right, Nina. We're family." Then her voice dropped again. "Nina, look at your brother, he's finally found someone like Anna. I'm just afraid all this talk about the baby and the apartment will ruin things between them." I pretended to think it over. "The baby is out of the question. But I can give Hugo the apartment. With that, Anna's family might stop opposing the marriage. He is my brother, after all. I can't let him be single forever." At that, my dad slapped the table. "The apartment is one thing, but you're giving us the baby too." My face darkened. "If that's your attitude, then we're done talking." Seeing how angry I was, my mom hurried to calm me down. "Don't get upset, Nina, you're still pregnant. Let's not talk about the baby right now. Just transfer the apartment to your brother first, he needs to get married as soon as possible." I nodded. "You're right. It's just that the apartment is in both my and Evan's names. I'll need to check with him first. I stood to leave, but tripped slightly over some trash on the floor. I glanced around. Mom, this place hasn't been lived in for a while. How about I hire someone like Ruby Hong to help clean up? My mom nodded quickly in agreement. After heading downstairs, I turned on the surveillance again. My dad was grumbling at my mom. How could you settle for just the apartment? My mom scoffed. Why are you so dense? We get the apartment first. Then once she gives birth, we take the baby. Hugo, clearly nervous, spoke up, but what if they try to take it back? My mom glared at him. Afraid of what? That baby is from our Nina, it belongs to our family. If it really comes to it, we'll just sell the apartment, and you and Anna take the baby and go into hiding. I don't believe they'll find you. Watching their malicious grins on the monitor, I felt ice crawl over my skin. So this was their plan. Well then, don't blame me for making sure they end up with nothing. The day I brought Ruby Hong to clean the place, I also brought over more supplies. Ruby was eager to help carry things, but her eyes wandered constantly. When she spotted a designer handbag, one of considerable value, her eyes lit up instantly. She asked tentatively, Nina, your mom is so lucky. Her daughter buys her such a nice bag. I paused, then waved my hand with a laugh. Oh, that? No, I didn't buy it. My dad got it for my mom for their wedding anniversary. I heard it's a custom piece, only one in the world. My mom doesn't know yet, so don't let it slip, okay? Ruby gave an awkward smile and didn't say more. Upstairs, my mom welcomed us warmly. Relations had been easing lately, and I had been bringing all sorts of things to restock the place. Ruby was clearly stunned by the lavish interior. She blinked rapidly, as if she were Grandma Lou walking into the Grand View garden, exclaiming in awe at every corner. My mom looked immensely pleased, holding back a proud smile with forced elegance. Ruby, street-smart and smooth-tongued, quickly charmed my mom into feeling like they'd been best friends for years. I put down the bags and casually asked, Mom, where are Dad and Hugo? Still giddy from Ruby's flattery, my mom replied distractedly, they went to Anna's place to talk. No sooner had she spoken than Hugo pushed the door open, my dad trailing behind him. Both of them were dressed to the nines in suits, but their faces were ashen, looking like two defeated, sickly chickens. Hugo glared at me with obvious frustration, clearly agitated. But he must have taken some of my mom's earlier advice to heart and held back from saying anything too nasty. My dad, however, didn't have Hugo's patience. As soon as he walked in and saw me, he shouted, when are you going to transfer the apartment to Hugo? Do you have any idea how Anna's mother looked at us today? She flat out said no apartment, no marriage. I forced myself to stay calm and lowered my voice to reason with him. Dad, keep it down, we have a guest. And like I said, Evan's been really busy lately. As soon as he's free, we'll go handle the transfer. My dad still looked angry, ready to argue further, but my mom, hearing the commotion, quickly rushed out to interrupt. What are you yelling for? Nina already said a few more days. Do you want to make a fool of us in front of others? She had been putting on airs in front of Ruby earlier and now she looked annoyed that the act had been exposed. But my dad ignored her and stared straight past her, at Ruby, who was standing there, still radiant and charming. Seeing the subtle exchange of glances between them, I finally let out a long breath. All my careful planning for today's scene wasn't for nothing. During dinner, Hugo eventually couldn't resist and began hinting again about the apartment. I wiped my mouth and said casually, I'm your sister. Do you think I'd lie to you about the apartment? It's just that your brother-in-law is swamped with a big project right now. If it goes well, forget this apartment, I'll get you a whole luxury condo. Hearing that, Hugo's eyes lit up. Really? I nodded. But have you thought about what you want to do in the future? You can't just keep drifting around like this. Mentioning work made Hugo deflate immediately. Anna's mom always complains about my job too. He asked tentatively, sis, maybe you can talk to Evan and get me in on that project? I pretended to think for a moment. That project is already full. But I do have a business that's profitable. If you can pull it off, who cares about your little health issue? Anna's mom wouldn't dare look down on our family then. At that point, you could get any woman you want. Hugo nodded eagerly. The next day, I took Hugo out. Watching him swagger ahead, I sneered inwardly. Hugo had been spoiled by my parents since he was a child. He grew up believing that everything in this family should go his way and that, as his sister, I should always pull strings for him. This time was no different. I barely threw out the bait, and he took it without hesitation. At our destination, a well-dressed man walked up to greet us. I smiled and extended my hand. Liam Liang, this is my brother Hugo. I'll be counting on you to look after him. The man smiled and nodded. No need to say more, just looking at Hugo, he's exactly the kind of talent our company needs. With a few words, he had Hugo grinning from ear to ear. All along the way, Liam Liang talked endlessly, showering Hugo with praise. I followed behind, watching Hugo walk with a spring in his step. Totally worth the money I spent. Inside the company, Hugo received countless flirtatious glances. And when he saw the attractive secretary assigned solely to him, his eyes nearly popped out. Hugo had no real sense of his own worth. Naturally, he assumed it was all thanks to his irresistible charm. A few days later, I received photos from Liam Liang, pictures of Hugo and that beautiful secretary, getting far too intimate right in the office. Satisfied, I sent Liam Liang a red envelope. Then I took the photos and the secretary straight to Anna's house. Anna's mother still had that arrogant expression on her face. She barked, I'll say it one last time, if you want Anna to marry Hugo, the apartment has to be transferred to her. Hugo can't have children. If you're really serious about this marriage, Anna needs some security. Before I could respond, the sultry secretary beside me giggled sweetly, Auntie, that's exactly what we're here to talk about today. Only then did Anna's mom notice the alluring woman beside me. She frowned and asked, Who are you? The woman smiled and said, Let me introduce myself, I'm Hugo's new girlfriend. You can call me Mila. Anna's mom was stunned for a moment before turning on me in rage. What the hell is this supposed to mean? Mila quickly stepped forward. Auntie, please don't be angry. I practically begged Nina to bring me here today so we could explain everything clearly. She glanced at the pale-faced Anna beside her and said with mock pity, Hugo said it himself, Anna is aging, past her prime, and can't even have children. She's just not a match for him. Anna's mother exploded with rage. What kind of bullshit is that? It's that useless Hugo who can't have children. Hearing that, Mila let out a sweet giggle. Auntie, you can't say things like that. Hugo told me his low sperm count just means it's less likely, not impossible, to have children. He also said I look like someone fertile and healthy. He's counting on me to carry on Nina's family line. Anna, already in tears, turned to me. Nina, is what she's saying true? I pretended to look heartbroken and nodded. Then I pulled out a stack of intimate photos of Mila and Hugo from my pocket. See for yourself. Anna picked up the photos, her face changing dramatically. She swayed on her feet, eyes rolling back before she fainted. Her mother rushed to catch her. But as she saw the pictures in Anna's hand, her lips trembled with rage. I stood up. Auntie, you see, Hugo's doing quite well now. Maybe we should just drop this whole marriage thing. With that, I placed a hand over my belly and walked out. Behind me, I could hear Anna's mother furiously cursing Hugo. I curled my lips into a satisfied smile. Anna had been with Hugo for 5 years. The Yin family would never take this lying down. And Hugo? He wouldn't be able to run from this. Soon after, I got a call from my mom. She told me Hugo had been ambushed on his way to work, specifically targeted down there. His injuries were so severe that the doctors said he might not just lose the ability to have kids, he might have trouble even standing again. Over the phone, my mom cursed the ungrateful Anna. Hugo's hurt so badly and that girl won't even answer the phone. I let out a soft chuckle. Of course, Anna wouldn't answer. Wouldn't be surprised if the family arranged the whole thing. After her rant, my mom urged me to come to the hospital and pay the bills. Mom, my stomach's been acting up. I really shouldn't go. Truthfully, I was terrified that I'd burst out laughing if I saw Hugo in his current state. Hearing that, my mom quickly told me to focus on taking care of the baby. I sneered silently at her so-called concern. What she cared about wasn't me, just the child I was carrying. She said, I've stashed some money at the house in the south part of the city. Why don't you go pick it up now? It's close to the hospital, and Hugo's injuries can't wait. I heard her eagerly agree on the other end. After hanging up, I called Liang. Everything's pretty much wrapped up. I've transferred the final payment to your account. Tell your people to clear out and don't show up around us again for the next few months. Liam's voice came through the phone, full of flattery and compliance. Once I hung up, I let out a long breath. I felt amazing. Liang, Mila, and all the company employees that day, they were all paid actors. The company itself was just a rented space. All of it was a setup to catch Hugo in the act and drive a wedge between him and the family. The family had always been arrogant. They treated Hugo like a dog over the past few years. So when they found out he was suddenly successful and cheating on Anna, they were bound to retaliate. I had been worried something might go wrong with the plan. But it had gone smoother than I ever imagined. I pulled up the surveillance feed and watched the two people tangled up on the sofa. A cold smile curved on my lips. It's your turn now. On the screen, my dad and Ruby were having a heart-to-heart. Ruby, I never thought I'd meet someone like you again in this lifetime. If not for you, I don't know what would have become of me. Ruby looked heartbroken and delicate. Hearing that, my dad was clearly moved. He couldn't wait to kiss her passionately. The two were so wrapped up in their emotions they didn't even notice the lock on the door clicking open. Next thing I heard was my mom's shrill scream. The lovers caught mid-affair finally realized someone had returned. My mom rushed in and yanked Ruby by the hair. Then came two loud slaps. Ruby's face turned purple almost instantly. You slut. You're just Ruby Hong from our house, and you dare seduce my husband. I'm going to beat you to death, you shameless homewrecker. My mom kept cursing as she dragged Ruby toward the bathroom, clearly not done venting her rage. But my dad shoved my mom so hard she stumbled back. When she tried to come at Ruby again, he slapped her across the face, knocking her to the ground. Try touching her again and see what happens. My mom sat there stunned, unable to believe it. She looked up at my dad in disbelief. You're defending her? Ruby, who had just recovered from the slap, sneered. You're the homewrecker. Hugo and I have known each other for years. Then she grabbed my dad's hand and strutted out, head held high. My mom was left slumped on the floor, dumbfounded. She wiped her tears and began shrieking and cursing at my dad and Ruby. Then, on the surveillance screen, I saw her clutch her neck and collapse backwards like a tree falling. Clearly, the shock had made her faint. I sighed and shut off the feed before slowly dialing 911. At the hospital, the doctor told me grimly, my mother had suffered a sudden stroke. Even if she survived, she would likely be in a vegetative state. I looked at my mother's ashen face, but felt little sorrow, only a sense of relief. She only knew that my father had once spent a few days in the police station out of loyalty. But what she didn't know was that the person he was being loyal to was a woman, a so-called confidant. Even I only found out by accident when I brought my father some money for alcohol and overheard one of his drunk friends spill the truth. Rumor had it that this confidant vanished completely after my father was arrested. It was only under pressure from my grandmother that my father ended up marrying my mother. That woman was Ruby. It took a lot of effort to dig her out from some remote corner of the world. And it was me, who casually hinted to Ruby that my father was a wealthy businessman, luring her in step by step. Ruby wanted my father's money. And my father, he had never forgotten Ruby. It didn't take long for the old flame to rekindle. Maybe I'm the only person in the world who's ever found a mistress for her own father. But I never once regretted it. Not long after, I sent both my mother and Hugo to a nursing home. I'd heard that particular facility had a bad reputation, rumors of patient abuse were common. But I didn't care. Every now and then, my father would call me, asking for money. He claimed Ruby was pregnant with my little brother. He carries the blood of the Nina family, he said. As his sister, you should help support him. I scoffed and didn't transfer a single cent. Instead, I advised him to turn himself in. Ruby had lived off fraud for years. The day she left with my dad, she also cleared out everything valuable from the house. Technically, most of it was mine, so after I sent my mom to the hospital, I called the police immediately. Now, both Ruby and my father had ended up on the police's wanted list. The next time I heard news of my father, it was from the police station. Turns out Ruby had tricked him, she wasn't pregnant. I had suspected as much. Two people with one foot in the grave, how likely was that? Not long after, Ruby ran off with the last of my father's money. Enraged, he had a stroke. They had been living in such a remote area that it took a long time for anyone to find his body. I identified it calmly and without emotion. When I walked out of the police station, Evan was waiting outside, holding our daughter's hand. I ran toward them with long strides. The breeze was just right, the sunlight warm but not harsh. And in front of me was a brand new life.